Good afternoon. Welcome to Sea of Tranquility. I am the guest host, Jack Toledano, and the host is Pete Pardo. And in about a minute or two, you will understand why I'm actually introducing this segment. This is an idea that I came up with, and I shared it with Pete some time ago. And busy person that Pete is, it took me well over a month to get this on the air. So here goes. So basically, just to give you a little background. So when at my job, I'm in operations, computer operations in a management capacity. And when there's a new person that starts at my company, sometimes I'll be called upon and asked to basically talk about my role there. And I'll go through, we'll exchange pleasantries and talk about my personal likes and dislikes, in addition to exactly what I do for a living at said company. So I'm thinking maybe there's a way that I could segue this into a show with Pete. So basically what I had pitched to Pete was that we could go behind the scenes and talk about things, outside of Sea of Tranquility that Pete likes to do. What does Pete have for breakfast every morning? What does Pete do at 10:30 every Tuesday morning? What does he like to eat? How much time does he spend with his dogs? And et cetera, et cetera. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to call this episode A Day in the Life of Pete Pardo.
Me.
So before we get started, is there anything you want to say since you are the host of the show?
No, I mean, I want to give thanks to Jack for coming up with this idea. And just so everybody knows, we're not just going to be talking to me and doing this kind of a day in the life thing. Jack thought it would be a good idea to get various personalities who appear on Sea of Tranquility to sit in on this type of format. Basically kind of like, Jack or whoever will be interviewing that person, so we can find out a little bit more about all of us, I think, because most people who watch us each and every day, know what we like to listen to or we like to watch, and we know a lot of that sort of thing. But what we do outside of the Sea of Tranquility bubble probably is a big mystery to most people. So I think it's kind of cool. And we haven't rehearsed this, so other than a cursory glance at Jack's questions, I'm going into this pretty blind. And, and just a little caveat to this, Jack and I know each other close to 40 years. So Jack knows me very, very well, but what he's going to try and do here is get me to talk about some stuff that will maybe allow you to know the inner me a little bit more, without telling you everything about my life. But yeah, so with that said, Jack, take it away.
It's funny. So about a couple hours ago, I was at the grocery store, and I'm always thinking whether it's my show or whether it's your show, always trying to come up with ideas. And I actually a question did pop into my head, so that I hope I remember it toward the end of this first part. So we'll keep this first question Sea of Tranquility related. How many viewers would you say you're up to?
We are just under 70,000 subscribers right now as of today. And as far as like total views, we're going to hit 25 million like any day now. If we haven't already, I haven't checked this morning, but I know we were right on the cusp of 25 million. So we generally get about 800. It depends on the month and it depends on the content, but we generally get about 800,000 to 1.1 million views a month. So it's pretty substantial. And it's pretty consistent. So I'm pretty happy with the way things are going, and we have a good community here. So it's really grown the last year and a half. I mean, it really has. It's surprised me how quickly it has, and I hope it continues. So I'm pretty happy with it.
Well, I guess that's one good thing about COVID, that a lot of people were locked indoors, so they needed something to do, and this was an avenue for them, and it caught fire. So
yeah,
it's must-see TV, basically.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are watching YouTube or things like YouTube. I apologize for all the dogs barking in the background. My wife must have came home. I think YouTube has replaced regular television watching for a lot of people. And I mean, let's face it, COVID We've, people are struggling with finances and things like that based on, maybe things going on with their jobs and their careers. And cable TV and whatnot has gotten very expensive. I mean, I personally, we got rid of cable like 3-4 years ago and opted to do streaming via Roku and the YouTube TV because, how much cable do I ever, we were paying over $200 a month for cable. And what was I watching? Very little. And it just got to the point where like, it's not worth it anymore. So, so YouTube is basically, it's free for folks to watch. And there's so much to watch on YouTube. Just about anything that you're interested in is available on YouTube. And I try to treat Sea of Tranquility, the channel, like a television channel. That's why we do like very specific programming each and every day of the week. It's not, we used to do just random stuff. We would just post random shit. And whenever we would record it, we just posted it. And I got to a point where I said, I want it a little more structured. I want people to be used to on Mondays having Hudson Valley Squares, Tuesdays having In the Prog Seat, Wednesday, new album review day. So I give you a whole bunch of episodes of new albums that I'm talking about. Thursday, Monsters Den for all the monster and horror fans we've got out there. Friday mornings, Martin Popoff and I record and post, our little chats. Sunday, we have album homework assignments. And in between all that stuff, we do like album rankings and top 10 songs and things like that. So it's like, that you can expect certain programming from us and count on it each and every day of the week. And I think that's very, very important. And that's really helped build the audience, like these loyal audiences that know Thursday night, Pete and Chris Allo and maybe a couple other people are going to talk about monster movies and horror movies. And on Monday nights, we get to watch the Hudson Valley Squares crew talk about, hard rock and metal. And Tuesday, you got all these cool prog people. It's really good to know, just like if you were watching USA Network or, TNT or Showtime or whatever, that you're going to get specific programming, ABC, Fox, all that stuff. That each day you can count on these special shows that come on that you like. And not every show is going to be for everybody. I tell people that all the time. It's like, if you're not into prog, watch the metal stuff. If you're more into prog, you watch the prog shows. And hopefully there's a little something for everybody on the channel. I know there's people who come and they just watch the Monsters Den because they're not really interested in music, but they love horror movies. So there's that. There's people who are music fans. They don't care about movies. They don't watch the Monsters Den. So it's like you pick what you like and you come the night of the week that's your night. And if you like everything, even better. So. All
right. Okay. So here goes. What is a typical day in the life of Pete Pardo?
Typical. Well, I'm a pretty early riser. I'm not a lounge in bed type of guy. I really never was. So, and we have 3 dogs here, which everybody watching pretty much knows. And as soon as the sun comes up and it gets a little bright outside, they're like, "Come on, Daddy, got to go out." So usually between 6:15, 6:30, 6:45, somewhere in that time frame, the dogs wake me up and they start walking around the room, and I'm like, all right, it's time to get up. So usually get up, take them out. Breakfast time for them is usually 8 a.m. But usually right after I let them out, come back inside, I get ready, and I'm usually recording an episode every day before I start working for my day job. So usually 7:30, maybe 8 o'clock, after I feed the dogs and have my yogurt or my protein shake in the morning. I'm recording a video for that day because for the last year, we've been doing that monthly daily show in addition to everything else. And that's usually a quick little show that I record first thing in the morning. So whatever the theme of the month might be. And so that's every day. And then Friday mornings, Martin and I get together very early as well before my regular day starts and we record our show. And then, like about 8:30, 9 o'clock, I start my day job. And I'm a customer success manager for a learning company. And that's, that keeps me pretty busy until about 5 o'clock. Usually I take a break around noon to go work out at the gym and maybe hit the post office or the supermarket or something like that. And, go cook dinner, spend a little time with the wife for dinner. And then, Monday, Tuesday, sometimes Wednesday and Thursdays, I'm back in this office again until probably like 10 o'clock at night, sometimes a little later. So it's a long day. Recording multiple shows every day, working a full 8 hours on the job and cooking dinner and dealing with the dogs. And, and so by like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, I'm done. So I'm going to bed.
Oh, okay. All right.
you know,
That's cool. There are some similarities. I work from home as well, and I do try to get out of the house because cabin fever, and I generally go till 5 or 6. But
yeah, I mean, that's why I think the gym is so important for me. It's like, even though, I'm older now. So it's like, I remember the old days, 10, 15, 20 years ago, I go to the gym and I was all about, doing this crazy weight training stuff. And now that I've gotten older, it's like my body just can't do like what I used to. But I still think it's important to get out of here for an hour and go and, get your blood pumping and your adrenaline flowing and heart racing, whether it's just doing light weights or some aerobic stuff, or even just going to walk around the track at the gym some days is I can fit in. And that's just something. But it's good for your body, it's good for your mind. It takes, because that's a good break in my work day, gets me out of here for an hour to break away from the job, and then to come back and finish out the rest of the afternoon. So I found, like, the older I've gotten, I get stuck in routines. And that's kind of like a thing about, as you get older, it's hard to change your routine, right? So for me, like, there are days where I've got multiple work meetings, and a work meeting gets scheduled at noon, and I see that on my calendar. I'm like, oh, but when am I going to fit the gym in, right? And then I get anxiety because I can't fit the gym in, and I have to maybe skip the workout. And then by like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'll feel a little sluggish because I didn't get to go exercise. And then that gives me anxiety, right? So it's like, yeah, anything that breaks away from the schedule usually can send me into a little bit of a tizzy for a little bit. But you got to deal with it, because that's like anybody else. We live busy lives and things change all the time.
I don't know if you thought of doing this, but sometimes if I really need to take some time, I'll block it off on Outlook.
Oh yeah, I do that. But sometimes people don't want to look at that. They just book you for a meeting anyway.
Yeah,
which is crazy, So it's like, if there's nothing you can do about that, you're like, all right, okay, so yeah.
Well, I only if it's really important do I accept, but
yeah.
But usually they're either not important or they're very important. There's just like no in between. Anything can be rescheduled.
Yeah, I hear you. But yeah, that's a typical week for me. And the weekends, we're usually fairly busy on the weekends doing like family stuff or other things. And I try not to do too much SoT Tranquility stuff on the weekends, but sometimes you can't schedule things with folks during the week.
Right.
You got to do a weekend, and for me, if I'm going to schedule something for SoT Tranquility on the weekends, I try to do it like Saturday or Sunday morning.
Right.
And early. And again, I'm an early riser. So and I sometimes drive folks on the channel crazy because I'm like, oh, can you record at like 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the morning? And they're like, oh, so early. It's like, I don't get up till 11 or 12. And I'm like, oh, because for me, I want to get it done. And also for my second channel, Comic Book Geezers, I'll get together with Bill, and we'll do that like once every 4 or 5 weeks. And we'll meet at like 9 or 9:30 a.m. and we'll record like 10 videos. So we'll be at it for like 4 or 5 hours, just recording one after another. And then I have all that content to then post on Comic Book Geezers for the next 3-4 weeks. So I don't have to worry about seeing him for a little while. So that's how that works. But it's not that easy on SoT Tranquility.
And you don't do any shirt changes?
Well, we do. Yeah. I go over there. I bring a whole bunch of shirts. So we change shirts after.
I'm glad I asked.
You have to, right? Because you
position the camera in a different part of the apartment, or I don't know if you recorded his place or yours.
We generally do it over at his, just because there's less dogs and there's less distractions.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, we try to make it look like we're recording on multiple days, but actually we do it all in one day. So.
That's cool. I'm glad I asked.
Yeah.
All right. So favorite foods?
Well, as you know, Jack, I'm Italian. My number one favorite food, I could eat pizza probably every day. I absolutely love pizza. I love pasta. I love Mexican food. I'm a big fan of anything spicy. Jack knows, you open up my fridge, there's like 10 bottles of hot sauce in there, all different kinds, habanero, cayenne, all sorts of different stuff. I love spicy things. I love Asian food. So I love Chinese food and Japanese food and Vietnamese and Thai. Love all that stuff. I'm also part Spanish, so I love like things like paella, and all the food from Spain. But I love food in general. I eat just about anything. But yeah, You could feed me pizza every day and I'd be quite okay with that. But I know I shouldn't
You
be.
ever make your own?
What's that?
Do you ever make your own?
From time to time. It's just when I'm feeling adventurous and it's on a weekend, if we're planning on, I may go do it on my own, but I don't do it that often because we really have some, I mean, living in New York, we have good pizza in New York, really.
Yeah, right.
So it's just so easy to spend $15 and just go down the street and get a really good
I
pizza.
know. It's funny. I'm the Italian one, and Sue prefers it if we buy from the pizzeria. I just don't want to spend $20 for a pizza anymore. It's gotten a little pricey. So
I know, but sometimes when you go and you buy, by the time you buy all the ingredients and look at
Yeah.
the time to prepare it and go shop for it,
right.
even though the pizza might cost $20, you're probably spending 12 or $15 for all the ingredients and at that
Yeah,
point, and the
I
time.
guess.
So you might as well just have them do it. I don't know. But I get
Yeah.
it. Sometimes though, you want to make it yourself, right? Sometimes
Right.
you want to go, you want to buy the fresh basil, and you want to put the amount of toppings that you want. You want to put the amount of sauce that you want, so I get it. I totally
Yeah.
get it.
Right. Okay. So how about hobbies? Any?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously music is my number one hobby, and that has always been the case. I love music, and that takes up a good chunk of my day. Even when I'm working my day job, I usually have music on in the background and stuff that I'm want to listen. Even though sometimes you can't really focus on it too much. You have it on, so you can kind of every now and then you're like, oh, that's really cool, and then you get back to work and get on that call. So that's number one. I love movies and films, especially like horror movies and mob movies and superhero films. That's, fantasy films. That's sci-fi, big, as you can see behind me. I love collecting films. I've been playing guitar, for a good chunk of my life. I love collecting guitars. So that's fun. I don't play professionally. I never did. I don't record anything. It's just for the love of just noodling around and, coming up with stuff and recreating riffs and things like that. So it's nothing serious, but it's always been fun. I'm a big New York Mets fan. I love baseball. So I love watching baseball. Obviously we have 3 dogs. I love having dogs. They're part of the family, and I love having them be a part of our lives too. I like working out, like you said. I like exercising, and those are the main hobbies, I would say. Cooking too. I love to cook.
Okay.
So those are probably my main hobbies. Yeah. And I love spending time outside. I love going on walks, and, when we have time and can go hiking and things like that. So, going to breweries. I love beer. So I love going to breweries, and we have a lot of great breweries in New York. So yeah,
we do. Pete and I both have the luxury. There are some really great ones here on Long Island, but there are some really great ones in the Hudson Valley where Pete lives. So can't go wrong.
There's so many, and I keep a spreadsheet of all the breweries I've been to, and I'm approaching 100 now, so which is pretty fun. Going to concerts too, another hobby of mine. I love going to shows, so I know not a ton of that going on right now, but I've been to so many concerts in my life, and that's always a lot of fun for me as well.
Right. Okay, that's cool. So
comic books too. Comic books.
I'm sorry.
Comic books. I love obviously love reading comic books. For those who don't know, those are all comics up there. So I'm a big collector of old Marvel and DC comics from like the 60s and 70s, and I read a lot too. So I love to read. I'm a big Stephen King fan, so I read. I'm always reading books. I love old Doc Savage pulp books and rock biographies.
How do you find the time?
Because I found 48 hours in a 24-hour day, Jack. That's why. Somehow I made it happen. I don't know.
All right. So you talked about your pets. That's good. Pet peeves. What are your pet peeves?
Pet peeves. People that don't put their blinkers on when they're driving drives me nuts. Getting stuck in traffic drives me nuts. People who don't read something before they open their mouths and say something. Like, in other words, like a pet peeve of mine, I get this all the time, like on the channel. So if we post a video on YouTube, obviously every single video has a title that tells you what the video is all about. And then I see people jumping into the chat. What's this video about? What are they talking about? And I'm like, you clicked on it. It's right there in the title. I mean, come on now.
Human nature.
I know, I guess. People that make judgment on things before they even know anything about it. That drives me nuts. I I mean, there's a ton of other things, but those are some of the things that really like just bug the crap out of me. And people just being honest with themselves and with each other. And
Right.
people, I also, a pet peeve of mine, which I guess is something that's just kind of the way things are now, but this whole like me generation, when people just all they really care about is what they care about, and they don't care about their fellow man or their family or their friends. It's like, we're all kind of in this together, and we should be mindful and respectful of each other. And I think that that's kind of gotten lost these days, and that really bothers me. But it's nothing I can really change. I can just be the way I am. So
Yeah, can only control what you can control.
yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've gotten through most of the personal section. Is there anything, actually, the question that I thought of as I was walking to the grocery store. So again, as Pete alluded to, we've known each other since 1985. That's what, 37 years?
Yep.
Something like that. It's a long time.
Yep.
Is there anything that I don't know about you?
That you don't know about me?
Yeah.
That's a great question.
You could always come back to it if you can't think, if you can't think of it now.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
I
There's gotta be something from when I was younger that you don't know about. Because I think all stuff like from my adult life, I think you've either been a part of or you've heard about from me. And geez, I'm trying to think anything crazy from my early life that you wouldn't know. I don't know. Let's get back to that because
yeah, sure. Number one, I stumped them at least once. Is there anything that you would like to let us know that you haven't already let us know, or you feel like you've covered everything?
I mean, for the most part, I think that covers that. I mean, that tells you a lot about me as a person.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I just, again, I want to read. I've said this on the air before, but I want to reiterate. I do this because I love to, because I have a passion for it. I didn't get in, if you've watched the history of Sea of Tranquility episode that I did.
And I have, yeah.
I kind of fell into this whole YouTube thing kind of by accident. I mean, I had already had the webzine for many, many years, and I just started doing this as a way to supplement the webzine because I started to see out there that people were more interested in watching people talk about music on mediums like YouTube or what have you, as opposed to going and reading written reviews on websites. I started to see the traffic start to whittle on the website, and people seem more interested in watching people talk about it. So I kind of fell into this just by accident, and it really grew from there. And for those of you who don't know, and again, I mentioned on that, I was a communications major back in college, and I wanted to work in television or radio as a broadcaster. I mean, that's what I went to school for. So what I'm doing now is kind of what I always wanted to do. But after college, I kind of struggled for a couple of years with jobs that were kind of related, but not. And I grew frustrated because I wasn't getting anywhere. And I kind of wound up getting into sales like in the early 90s. And that's, kind of what I've been doing ever since. And I always wondered when or if I would ever get back to doing this. So now, all these years later, what I'm doing here on the channel is not that far removed from my original intent. Although originally I didn't think that I would be in front of the camera. I thought I would be behind the camera and more in the production side of things. But I've actually gotten into the performance part of it, which is interesting. But in doing so, I am talking about things that I love, which is music and movies and stuff. So it's pretty cool, actually, when you think about it. And it's funny how I look back on, when I was in college, when we were doing like TV projects and stuff and doing videos and things, anytime I'd be in front of the camera, I always kind of cringed at it. And then when I look at like the early videos I did for Sea of Tranquility, when we started the channel back in 2014, I can't even watch them. They're so bad because I'm just very stiff and wooden. And even though like what you see every day now is, I mean, you know me, I'm no different on camera than I am in regular life. I mean, it's just
right.
me, but it took a while for me to just allow myself to be me in front of the camera. And now this is like, to me, I almost don't even see a camera here. It's just like, I feel like I'm sitting down with you, like we've done a million times over the last 30 years, just chit chatting about shit, having a beer, going to whatever we're doing. And that's the way I look at it. So it's just, I'm just being me. And people, it's just really weird. I talk to people all the time who are like, I watch you every day and I would love to meet you. And it's like, they talk to me like I'm some like, very famous actor or and I'm like, I'm just a regular person like you. I'm just a fan. That's why I do this. And it's like, I'm just a regular guy. So sometimes it's like, it's really weird. Like I'll go to the supermarket and I get recognized and they're like, oh, it's so great to meet you. I watch you all the time. Wow. And I'm like, that's cool, but it's like, to me, it's just like, I'm just meeting someone that I haven't seen in a while or that I know from the gym or whatever. But I get approached like I'm something, what I'm saying? It's kind of weird for me, and it still hasn't sunken in. But I guess that goes back to what I was telling you before. It's like people now watch YouTube like they would watch television. So people who are content creators on YouTube now are the new celebrities in a weird way. So I haven't adjusted to that yet, but I'm happy that people want to meet me, and then when they do, they're, they want to talk to me and all that kind of stuff. It's just, it's still kind of a little weird, but yeah.
Very cool. That's great. That's something that I didn't ask. So great that you volunteered it. So I do have a musical analyst section, so we might as well get into that. So how would you say, about how much time do you spend listening to new music versus known music that you grew up with?
Great question. I would say these days it's probably like 70-30 in favor of the new stuff.
Okay.
But like there are certain times when I listen to the old stuff pretty much exclusively. Like when I'm at the gym, I have two 160 gig iPods that are filled with thousands and thousands of albums. And a good chunk of that, not a good chunk, but a good chunk of that is the classic stuff. And so like when I go to the gym every day, I'm usually listening to old stuff that gets me motivated, right?
Oh, I see.
In the car, it's a mix of the two, but more of the newer stuff. So just to give you a little perspective on how it works for me. So at my desk here during the day or during the day, every day, I'm surrounded with all sorts of new stuff, new releases that have come out that I'm trying to listen to and digest to review on the webzine and review on the channel. Once I have done that, so here I'll play those while I'm working. Sometimes I'll just listen to them exclusively. Sometimes I'll take the new stuff and I'll play it while I'm cooking dinner or something like that. So generally the new stuff gets heard here in the office or throughout the house. Once I've listened to it a couple times, or as many times as I need to figure out what to say about it, and I review it on the channel and or on the webzine, then that new release generally goes in the car.
Okay.
I'll play in the car. And then eventually, as you can imagine, I can't keep, 300 CDs in the car. So after a little while, after I've heard it in the car a few times, I will usually bring it back in the house. I may transfer it onto iTunes to put on the iPod, and then eventually it goes back on the shelf. So that's kind of how it works. But I do from time to sometimes like when I'm like in the summertime, if I'm out, outside back by the pool or hanging out outside or whatever, I'll go to the shelves and pull off some old classic stuff that I want to hear, and I'll play it out by the pool, or I'll play it on the iPod or something like that. But yeah, it's it all kind of has its place, and it all gets tended to and then listened to at some point. But there definitely are certain scenarios where new stuff is almost played exclusively and classic stuff is played exclusively in other scenarios and situations.
Okay. All right. Well, that's pretty remarkable, because I find that if I'm like an album homework assignment, for example, if I'm given something new, I cannot focus on that while I'm working. I can only listen to stuff that I know. I have to sit there and pay attention to the music to try and absorb, and get something out of it to be able to review it. But that's pretty remarkable that you can do that.
Well, yeah, I mean, what'll happen is I'll play it like while I'm working. But when I'm getting ready to review it, I have to have a complete session with it or two where I'm doing nothing but listening to that. But I like to at least acquaint myself with it a little bit while I'm doing other stuff, at least for a time or two. Because I mean, some of the stuff you got to listen to like 3, 4, 5 times. You know, there are some albums you listen to once or twice and you have a pretty clear understanding of it. And you know exactly what you're going to say. There's other times where I'll listen to something 3, 4 times. I'm like, geez, I still don't have a grip on this at all. Right. And so that can be more difficult, but it depends on the type of music. You know, sometimes you listen to a good hard rock or metal album, and after 2 listens, you're like, all right, I get it, I like it, or I don't like it. Sometimes you play some of this, you know, this more abstract prog stuff or jazz or fusion, and like you listen to it 3, 4 times, and you still don't even have a clue what you would say about it. You got to play it again, isolated, right, with nothing else going on. So it kind of depends on the release, you know.
Okay, all right. So that's good. That answers the next question. So we can skip over that one. So as a guitar player, does that help in any way in being able to rate these albums?
Well, I don't know that it helps. I think because I play a little guitar, and again, I'm not the most accomplished player on the earth by any means. But I think it helps me to look at and listen to certain things. Unfortunately, because I'm such a fan of guitar and guitar music, I think that I tend to look at and judge music based on the guitar playing a lot more than maybe some people do. Like someone who doesn't play an instrument and has no investment in anything other than just the overall presentation of the song, they may look equally at, or listen to equally the vocals and the drums and the guitars and the melodies. And whereas I'm usually like, how good is the guitar work? And that's always number one for me. And then the vocals come right behind that and all that sort of thing. So I think maybe at times it may help a little bit because I maybe understand where the players are coming from a little bit and why they're doing what they're doing. But in other instances, because I'm such a fan of guitars and guitar oriented music, I kind of, I look at the guitars first and foremost, and sometimes I judge based on that. So it could be a plus or a negative there. I don't know. I think after all these years, I think I've kind of also gotten used to, because I've reviewed, thousands and thousands and thousands of albums over the years, that I think I've gotten to a pretty good point where I try to look at the overall picture. But I'm always, I always listen for the guitars first, but I still think in the end, I'm still trying to look at the full picture there. But I do, guitars are always going to be very important to me and what I hear first.
Okay. All right. Awesome. So next question. Do you ever get writer's block?
Oh yeah. Yeah. For sure. I have actually, it's funny you asked that question because I actually went through a period the last couple of months, probably since the start of the summer, where I hardly reviewed anything on the webzine because thankfully I've got a nice crew who crank out a lot of reviews there, but I could talk about them. So in other words, I could listen to an album and then talk about it on the YouTube channel, but then I would sit down to write the physical review of it, and I didn't know what to say. And I felt like I have been saying the same things over and over and over again for 20 years through thousands of reviews. And I was like, man, I want to be able to say something a little different or new. And I feel like I'm kind of repeating my steps over and over again. So I took and not really intentionally, but I took like a 2 or 3 month break where I really didn't write any reviews at all. And I just concentrate on do the video audio reviews. And then recently I got back into it and I felt kind of refreshed and ready to go at it again. So something great. I guess you need to do that every now and then. I hadn't done that in like 20 years. And
kind of like a songwriter, you run out of ideas, things to say. And
I mean, it's like, well, what new can I say about this album? It's like, okay, this song's got a great melody. This one's got a great guitar and keyboard solo. And this one's got, it's just like, oh my God.
Right. Yeah.
It's something different. And this band sounds like this band. It's but like I said, the couple month break, I think did me well. And then I got back into it again recently. And what I did is like, and I'm looking at my style. I have like probably 10 that I have to review in the near future that I just need to sit down. And for me, it's hard to write reviews. I have to find like a specific time for them. And for me, usually early mornings on the weekends is my best time because nobody else is up yet. And I crank them out. And usually by the time I do the written reviews, I've usually already listened to the CDs enough, and I've done the video review, and the written review now didn't used to be. Now is the last thing I do before that CD goes in the car or wherever it's going to go. So yeah, so I've changed the order that I do things a little bit, because in the past I used to do the written reviews first, and then I would do the quick video review. Now it's the other way around. So, but you got to change it up. I mean, that's the whole thing. You got to, you know, in my old age, I've got to be used to change every now and then, and sometimes change is good. So I just kind of rework my schedule on how I do these things.
So I'm glad you mentioned change, because that segues into my next question, and we are kind of getting close to wrapping it up. But so how do you feel your musical tastes have changed over the years?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, well, let's go all the way back. So, you know, originally I fell in love with like radio pop music and just like AM radio stuff back in the early mid 70s. And then, you know, I discovered Kiss, and that got me into heavier music. Then I discovered Black Sabbath and Judas Priest and Iron Maiden, Scorpions and Rainbow and Zeppelin and Purple, and, you know, all the usual suspects, and then Metallica and Slayer and the heavier stuff. And, you know, then you know, with the turn of the 90s, I got very disenchanted with metal, because metal kind of all of a sudden was dead. Not really dead, but, you know, in the public eye. And a lot of the metal bands that I liked started doing other things or not doing much. And then grunge and alternative came, and new metal. And I got into prog really big in the 90s, and jazz. And then I got back into metal in the 2000s. And I really got heavily into like extreme metal, like in around 2004, 2005. And like big time. Like I there was a bunch of years where I was listening to, you know, death metal and black metal and thrash. Like that was the majority of what I listened to till about like 2012 or 13, something like that. And I will say now, where I'm at now is I don't listen to as much extreme metal as I used to, but I still listen to some bands quite a bit. Like, you know, there's some that I can still listen to Cannibal Corpse and Nile and, you know, Old Death. And I still like, you know, the stuff like that, the classic death metal bands and some of the newer ones, but I don't listen to as much of it as I used to. I listen to a lot more like classic style hard rock and classic rock now. I think as I've gotten older, my tastes for just good old hard rock just really has risen. I probably listen to more like hard rock than I do metal these days, although I still listen to a lot of metal, especially the classic bands. And I listen, but you know, I have to listen to a lot of new metal stuff and you know, new bands. And I don't listen to as much power metal as I used to, but I still like it. I don't listen to as much progressive metal as I used to, but I still like it a lot. I listen to more prog than I used to over the last decade or so. But I definitely think that like when it comes to prog, perfect example. So I love prog. I love progressive rock music. But like if you were to ask me 10, 15, 20 years ago, I love the bands that do these big 15-minute, 20-minute long songs and all this kind of stuff. Now I'm like, please, can you do shorter songs and not like 80-minute long albums and
Right.
sort of thing. So I think my attention span for the really longer epic things has minimized. But now I mean, I love a good band that can do like classic style hard rock or metal that you know, brings me back to the 70s or the 80s. And yeah, I think now I probably listen to more different stuff as opposed to going through phases where I was listening to a lot of one thing. Like the 90s for me was all about prog. The early mid 2000s was all about extreme metal. The 80s was all about 80s metal. The 70s were all about, you know, hard rock and pop. And so I think I've kind of changed a bit over the years. And but I definitely noticed that I probably now, you know, a couple of years ago, I would listen to and review like 300 to 500 new albums a year. I can't digest that much anymore. I can't do it. Like I think this year I maybe listened to and reviewed about 200, and that's probably the lowest I've done in 20 years. But
I can understand that.
Yeah, it's just hard. It's finding the time.
Yeah.
It's hard. So
Yeah.
you can't listen to everything, and you know, some stuff just doesn't appeal to me like it used to. And so, you know,
Even 48-hour days that you experience.
Even that's not enough, Jack. Even that's not enough.
But no, I was about to wrap it up, but it gives me another question, and you could probably help me out on this because I'm struggling with it. So years ago, I used to write a little bit with Pete on Sea of Tranquility, and one time Pete gave me this CD, and I was looking back, I was very unfair to it because I didn't really understand it. It was basically extreme metal, and they had those what we would refer to as Cookie Monster vocals. How do you how are you able to judge that? Because for me, I can't. For me, the vocals have to be good, like Rob Halford or Russell Allen or Ronnie James Dio. They have to be good quality vocals for me. How do you do it?
Well, I mean, when it comes to extreme metal, it's like that is the way they sing. So just like a pop singer sings in a certain way, just like a classic metal singer sings in a certain way, just like a prog singer sings in a certain way, death metal and black metal, they sing that way. So for me, there are good death metal growls, there are good black metal shrieks, and there are bad ones. I find if the death metal vocalist, if I can understand what he's saying, and it's not just because there's a lot of death metal bands where they do the growling thing, but you can understand everything they're saying.
Right.
That to me is pretty good. If I can understand you and it's not, I mean, but I like horror movies and stuff like that. So to me, it doesn't scare me off.
Right.
But there are some that are just like they're unlistenable because it's just a wall of noise. So I guess a lot of extreme metal bands are amazing musicians. And I think early on, because I was like you at very early on, as like, extreme metal to me did not compute because I was like, I don't know if I can deal with that style of singing. But once I started to appreciate the musicality of a lot of those bands, then I started to appreciate what these guys do vocally. It's just another instrument to them. It's not meant to be, sung along to and all that kind of stuff. It's like that for a reason. This music is supposed to be brutal and ferocious. And I started to then pick out the ones that I really, really liked, where I was like, you know what, I can totally get into and enjoy that style of singing in that band. But there are some that I just like, there's a band called 6 Feet Under, right? George Corpse Grinder Fisher singing for that band, and I can't stand the way he sings. To me, his death metal growls are just like unlistenable. And there are some that are like that for me, but there are others that I'm like, I just totally dig the way they're doing it. So, but it's not for everybody. I mean, I would just say that like, if you could, once you start to gain an appreciation for what some of those bands are doing musically, sometimes that can help you to then better appreciate and understand and maybe accept some of the vocals. But I think if you're, and I'm not singling you out because I know plenty of people who that's the way they think, they won't even give the music a try because they can't get past the singing. But right. I think if you can carve out some time to try to listen beyond the vocals and listen to what they're doing, the guitars and the drums and all that kind of stuff and the arrangements. There's some really, really great bands in extreme metal that are doing some fantastic stuff. But I get it. I mean, not everybody can listen to that.
I think I almost had a breakthrough about a week or two ago with Lamb of God. So
yeah, I mean, that's a good example. Yeah, I mean, I would say try and listen to some mid-period Opeth. Definitely listen to some Amorphous. I mean, Amorphous, because, and this may be the way to help you with it, because it was my way into the style of music. I picked out those bands who do equally the death metal growls and the clean melodic vocals within their songs and their albums. Gotcha. And that really helped me. So like Opeth, Amorphous, Borknagar, there's a ton of other bands, Slave. There's a lot of other bands that utilize both styles and that are very adventurous musically. And that might be the way to get you to appreciate, because you're going to hear, in a 5-minute song, you'll hear 2 minutes of clean, melodic, great vocals. And then they'll do the growling thing for a minute. Then they'll go back to the clean, then the growl. And in between, you get all these intricate guitars and keyboards and drums. And you're like, wow, that actually kind of works, because you get that variety and it's not straight 45 minutes of, right, which can be too much for anybody. Right. So yeah, that's what I would suggest. And I could offer you examples of, off camera of some bands to check out where I think you might be able to, listen and grow an appreciation for it.
All right. That's awesome. So that about wraps everything up, Pete. So that is, unless you have anything we didn't cover, I think we covered a lot in, I think, what, 50 minutes?
Yeah,
So
yeah, I think so. I mean, this was kind of cool to talk about some of this stuff, which
yeah,
I don't get to talk to too often. I do want to mention for everybody watching, please go over to Jack's channel. All or Not According to Jack, the brand new YouTube channel that he started up like 2 weeks ago, Jack. So
yeah. I think I've got 4 or 5 episodes in now, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a challenge getting the audience, but I'm hoping that'll happen in time. But
yeah, it doesn't happen overnight, unfortunately. That's
I know,
just
but
gotta work at it. And if I will make a suggestion,
sure.
always rewatch your videos.
Yes, I do.
Personally critique them and how you would do things differently. I used to do that when I first started up Sea of Tranquility. I used to watch every video I did religiously, if not at least once, if not twice. And I would look and I would grade myself and I would critique myself and I would say, all right, how could I have done that better? And then
That's
work
an
on it.
excellent suggestion. And
Work on
I
it.
got to tell you, I feel like I've improved from my first one already. Because, I would, like I told you on, on the holiday show about a week or so ago, I was scared as hell because I didn't have a safety net, a la Pete Pardo.
It's hard. Well, yeah, I mean, you're used to being on.
And I was going off some notes, whereas
Yeah,
about 2 or 3 episodes in, I was able to kind of more, ad lib more and just
yeah.
be my natural self. And I didn't forget things.
It's hard when you're doing it solo because you don't have like you're very when you come on Sea of Tranquility, you're here with me and sometimes other people, and
Right.
it's just like you're hanging out with you're yourself. You're just normal
Right.
conversation.
Right.
But when you're doing it all on your own, just you, it's like, oh, the camera's on me. I don't have anybody to feed off of, right? And then you tend to rely on notes a lot. And I remember because I've done it, right? So, but you'll get to a point where you'll be like, all right, just me solo should be no different than you with me or you with Martin or you with Rick or whoever or Steve Keeler or whoever, because you'll begin to realize that you're not alone because you're looking at that camera and you're talking directly to your universe, right? Your audience.
Right.
And your audience, you'll feel like they're with you at all times. So that feeling of kind of like isolation and like, oh shit, the camera's on me all by myself. I can't feed off anybody. That kind of goes away because you feel like you're part of something much bigger. The camera then becomes me or Rick Labonte or George Lemay or whoever it might be, right? So yeah, it just takes time. It doesn't happen overnight.
Okay. Well, I feel like I'm on the right track, and I appreciate all your help and everything. I mean, I can't thank you enough. But in closing, for me, so from my next episode, possibly this weekend, looks like I will be bringing my first guest or two, and it will be my first episode with regards to pro wrestling. I won't say exactly what, but I think it's going to be a good, fun topic, and we'll take it from there.
Ask Mr. Allo because he will join you whenever you want. He's.
Yeah. Oh no, I have him in mind, but in the meantime, somebody that very close to me gave me a great idea, so we're going to go with that.
Cool. There you go. Have fun.
I don't want to give too much away yet, but we'll
There you go.
Hang in there, folks.
All or Nada, according to Jack, right? So everybody just go seek that out here on YouTube and make sure you give Jack some love over there.
Okay, thanks, Pete. Anything you want to plug the next day or two?
No, I mean, we're a little light on programming this week because of the holidays and everything like that, but we're starting up on Saturday our brand new monthly series for January. It's albums that turned 50 years old in 2022. So we're going to be looking back to 1972, pretty magical year. I'm going to be picking out my 31 favorite albums from 1972. Ooh. I've got the long list. I haven't whittled it down to 31. So every morning I'll be doing a short little 5-minute video for everybody with another pick from 1972. So that'll be starting on Saturday. So looking forward to that because we did that earlier this year, with 1971, and that was
Right.
extremely popular. So yeah, so we're going to be revisiting that, except going up a year. So, and I will be doing that at the beginning of the year every year going forward, as long as we're doing this thing on YouTube. So yeah.
All righty. And here comes my canine to scope out and see what's going
There
on.
you go. It's like, Daddy, are you talked enough on this YouTube thing? Time to.
Yep.
I gotta go feed mine actually. So yeah, that's perfect.
Right. Yeah, it's about that time. But anyway, thank you for spending the time, Pete. And I hope everybody enjoys it. And I would love to, carry this forward with other members of the Sea of Tranquility family.
Sounds good. Sounds good. We'll be doing that. So Jack and I will be reaching out to other folks, and Jack will be doing these little mini interviews with other Sea of Tranquility personnel going forward. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. Didn't think you'd get away without me doing that, right? So
Right.
watching everybody. For Jack Toledano, I am Pete Pardo, and we'll see you real soon. Another day in the life coming up in the near future. So thanks for everybody. Enjoy, and Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.